Neoterism. The definition of neoterism is the emergence of a new modern frame of mind in the process of regulating two cultural identities. What I mean by new modern frame of mind is the following four elements. You become aware that identity is a choice. And number two, you become aware that what's important in identity development is the function in that culture. And number three, balance is the key element in understanding bicultural identity development. Last but not least, number four, omnibus consciousness. Okay, let me begin by the first element. What I mean by emergence of a new modern frame of mind. Number one, in the process of developing two or more cultural identities, you'll start realizing that identity is a choice. If you live in culture A, you have a choice to assimilate with the culture A identity. And if you move to culture B, you have a choice to assimilate and develop the culture B identity. If you're immersed in one culture, this kind of understanding is hard to emerge because you don't think about your identity, your cultural identity. You just live and accept what you're given in that one monocultural development. Number two, function. Oftentimes, psychologists, philosophers talk about the meaning of identity. What is identity? Identity is how fluent you communicate in that language. Identity is how many books you're able to read in that language? Is it how much education you have in that culture? There's different meanings to different people as far as what does it mean by identity. Erik Erikson said identity is about sameness and consistency. From a neoterism perspective, what's important about identity development is function. You're able to function in each culture. And what I mean by function is obviously you're able to communicate in the language that's necessary. Also, live a lifestyle, maintain your life within that culture. Being a perfect Japanese, being a perfect American is not what's concerned. The ultimate question is what is a perfect Japanese? What is a perfect American? So it's not about perfecting your development. It's okay to be between and betwixt, but what's important is to be able to function, live a lifestyle within that culture. The third element is balance. What I mean by this is when you develop more than one cultural identity, you can't reject the other identity. If you do reject it, you will take a path of developing a monocultural identity. So balance means you need to respect both cultures, understand the differences and similarities of each cultures, and know what to do in a given situation that's appropriate within that culture. If you need to act like a cultural A person, you'll be able to do that. If it requires to act like a cultural B person in that given culture, that's the way you'll act. In other words, in Japan, I can act and function as a Japanese. In the United States, I can communicate in English as an American person. And I maintain a balance. One cultural identity is not higher or lower. It's about maintaining cultural respect and balance. Last but not least, the fourth element is what I refer to as omnibus consciousness. And basically what that means is in the process of regulating and developing two cultural identities or more cultural identities, you start realizing you're part of two cultures, but you start realizing your true self. You start gaining self-authority. You start understanding who you are, and you become the coordinator of your own life. You have your own narrative. You have your own story. You do belong to two cultures, but you're the owner of your cultural lives. If you choose to maintain an identity that belongs to culture A, that's what you can do. If you choose to maintain an identity that belongs to cultural B, you can do that. You have self-authority. You're the owner of your own story. If you choose not to be the identity of culture A, that's what you can do as well. If you choose not to be part of the cultural B identity, that's the way you can be as well. So in other words, there's a flexibility. It's not about negating the cultures. It's about utilizing your cultural identities in the best way possible to realize your dream as a storyteller, as a personal coordinator of your life. And another component of omnibus consciousness is you start realizing in the process of regulating through two cultures, you start realizing there's another way. There's a third way that I do that is not exactly explained by one culture or the other culture. Cultures are very limited, and you start understanding the limitations of each culture. You start using both cultures blended and creating something even bigger, more solid, more whole, that represents what you want to manifest in the world. In order to become the coordinator of your life, in other words, you use what's necessary, the tools that's offered in culture A, and the tools and the ways of living offered in culture B, and use it, blend it, and even creating something new in order to realize your dream, in order to contribute to the society, in order to be a change agent for the future. The definition of Neoterism is the emergence of a new modern frame of mind in the process of regulating two cultural identities. So today I explained what I mean by new modern frame of mind. And there were 4 elements necessary to understand what I mean by the new modern frame of mind. In the process of Neoterism, you start realizing that number 1, identity is a choice. And number 2, what's important in identity development is not perfecting the identity that represents the culture, but being able to function in that culture, being able to be a law-abiding member of the society. And number 3 is maintaining balance between the two cultures and the two cultural identities. It's not putting one at a higher pedestal than the other, keeping a balance and being able to go back and forth each cultures and always maintain a balance. Know which cultural identity is necessary in a certain situation, understanding the balance. And last but not least, number 4, omnibus consciousness, which is basically realizing your self-authority, becoming a storyteller or a coordinator of your life by utilizing both cultural identities. We understand that the cultural identities are not perfect. Cultures are not perfect. But by blending and compensating each culture and even creating something new, you can offer more than ever to contribute to the society, to make a difference in the society, and become a change agent.